Welcome. So today I would like to talk a little bit about Matthew 20. I was listening to somebody teach on it over the weekend, and the way that it was delivered was, God doesn't owe us anything as far as us not looking to our neighbors and why are they receiving this and I worked hard and I did this, and just kind of pointing at the heart of man. God doesn't owe you anything, even though he gave us everything. And as I was listening to it, the Holy Spirit showed me something, and I just thought it was so beautiful that I wanted to share it with you guys. So in Matthew 20, if you're not familiar, Jesus is basically saying this is what the kingdom is like. An owner went out and went to find laborers for his vineyard. So he goes out early in the morning, he hires a group of people, and he says, I'll give you a denarius if you work in my vineyard. They agree to it. He goes back out at 9 a.m., 12 a.m., 12 a.m., 12 p.m., 3, and at the end of the day. And once it's all finished, he calls them on in, and he says, pay them from the last people that was hired all the way down to the first people I hired. So the first group comes up and he gives them a denarius. Naturally, the people that were hired first started thinking, we're about to get broke off. But they didn't. So they were upset about it. They said, we've worked so hard all this time. They just came in here and you pay them the same thing that we get paid? And I think it's interesting because you find the same argument in the parable of the prodigal son. The son goes out, he gets half of, his portion of the inheritance, and he blows it. Then he comes home. The older brother sees that the younger brother, who squandered his inheritance, has a party thrown for him, and he is livid. He won't even go inside. So the father comes out and he's like, what's going on? And he says, I've worked for you all these years, and this son of yours who squandered your wealth on prostitutes gets the fatted calf? And the father goes, my son, you are with me always. Everything that I have is yours. And I think it's interesting because we could always see the heart of man in these parables, but the beauty of what Jesus is revealing is the heart of God, the heart of the Father. The parable was about the Father. When he starts it out, he talks about the Father. The Father looked, the Father waited, the Father ran, the Father clothed, the Father put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. The Father celebrated when his son came home. The parable is about the love of the Father, just as the parable with the vineyard is about the kingdom. It's not about the payment for labor. He opens it up and says, this is what the kingdom is like. What he's saying is that whether you have received Christ and become a citizen of heaven for 15 years, or whether you have just became a citizen of heaven 15 minutes ago, the wages for both of you is all of heaven, all of Christ. God does not give Christ out in increments. It's not, well, you've been with me for 15 years, so you get a little more of Christ. You just step through the door, so you'll get this much. We all receive all that God is. All that he has is ours. So, in closing, I just want to say, beloved, there are no black sheep in God's family. You serve a generous God, and all that he has is yours. I know that you are blessed in your hearing. And as always, grace and peace.